Welcome, Lifeability family. I'd love to share the conversation with my guest speaker, Emmy Vadnais, who discusses the importance of maintaining health and well-being through integrative and complementary health approaches. Emmy dives into the power of intuition in healing. So a little bit about Emmy Vadnais. Emmy is an occupational therapist, intuitive healer, health coach, teacher, consultant, and writer. She provides holistic and integrative healthcare and intuitive development education to individuals, healthcare practitioners, and organizations. Emmy helps people transform pain and anxiety to peace and joy and align with the divine. Emmy advocates for cultural acceptance of holistic, integrative health, wellness, prevention, and intuitive development. She does this through education, writing, research, and successful outcomes. Emmy is the founder and director of Holistic OT Community at holisticot.org that supports OTs interested in or practicing integrative health, wellness, and prevention. Emmy is also the co-host of the new Thinking Aloud YouTube channel with Jeffrey Mishlove. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Welcome, Emmy Vadnais, to the Lifeability podcast. Thank you so much for being here and supporting my mission of reaching the wider audience to explore and embody various strategies that they can embody in their life, and so they can create a more fulfilled life for themselves. I'd love for us to start off with you sharing a little bit about your OT journey, specifically into holistic OT, and why you're so passionate about what you do.
Well, thank you, Shraddha, for having me on your podcast. It's a pleasure to be with you. I have been an occupational therapist for quite a number of years now, and I actually graduated in 1996 from St. Catherine University. When I was a student, I knew that I wanted to pursue prevention and wellness, but it wasn't until I had graduated and was out in the field that I learned that, at least here in the United States, and I think a lot of the world, there really isn't reimbursement for health, wellness, and prevention, which is really unfortunate. And I hope to see that change in my lifetime, because we now know that the World Health Organization and other leading physicians and researchers have shown that 80 to 90% of illness and disease can be prevented. So while I think it's wonderful that occupational therapists can help people to be as functionally independent and interdependent as possible, and I understand that people are born congenitally with certain experiences, conditions, and accidents happen and so forth, that I feel like it's really important for us to also be focusing on helping people maintain their health. Now, people also want to live their lives and have fun, and sometimes people think that being healthy and well isn't always, or the steps that one needs to do for that isn't always the funnest, but there are ways that people can engage in living a healthy lifestyle, and maybe even having moderation in moderation, as far as how they implement that. So when I was a new occupational therapist, I'm here in the Twin Cities. I'm in St. Paul, Minnesota, which is the twin city of Minneapolis and the capital of Minnesota. A lot of people don't know that, but it was very saturated when I first started practicing, when I first graduated. So I moved to a town out of the Twin Cities, and I wanted to work in the hospitals, but I couldn't at the time because it was just so saturated with therapists, because there's a lot of schools here, and that's just where it was at the time. You needed to have at least 5 years experience to work in those facilities. So I ended up working in a skilled nursing facility, which wasn't foreign to me. I had worked in one as a nursing assistant when I was a teenager and partly in college. But I thought I was doing rehab with people, but really I was doing end of life care. As people kept having stroke after stroke, their cognitive impairment would decline, their diabetes would progress sadly, and we, would see people lose their sight or their sight diminish and unfortunately experience amputations. And it was really heartbreaking. And I understand that some of those things do happen and can happen at the end of life, but I really wanted to be on the other side of it. And so that, coupled with the insurance hold that is on our country here and other places of the world as well, I understand insurance can provide a great service, but it does have a great monopoly over healthcare and really turn it into a business. And so it was very frustrating for me to have to be on the other end of a phone with somebody who I don't even know if they had a college degree, let alone, a therapy degree, to be telling me how I should conduct my treatment, how many sessions I can have, and so forth, and setting up the guidelines of me having to demonstrate the progress my patient was making. And I understand why that happened, but I would have preferred if they were actually a licensed therapist or something, or even a nurse or a physician. So I got burnt out, and I worked for about just under 2 years. I worked in skilled nursing, I did home care, and I just hit a wall. And I started experiencing my own symptoms of anxiety, feeling depressed. I now understand that, people use the term burnout, but I understand really that there's another term called moral distress, moral injury, moral distress. So I was working in a situation that was also requiring high productivity standards, which still isn't uncommon these days. Very sad, where we have to be treating 80-90% of the time, which is really unrealistic because we need to collaborate with other caregivers. We need to go to meetings, caregiver meetings. We need to go to the bathroom. We need to do our documentation. So I actually stopped working as an OT, and I started taking classes actually at a holistic health and wellness center back in the late 1990s. And the classes I was taking or a class I was taking was called medical qigong. So I was very interested in how you can affect somebody physically, mentally, spiritually, without physically touching them. And I had heard about energy healing from a couple physical therapists, and they were intelligent. They seemed like their mental health was intact. I believed what they were saying, that energy healing could actually help people. So I went ahead and started taking some classes. And part of our process with learning energy healing was meditation. And so we would sit in meditation for sometimes up to 20, 30 minutes or more, cultivating our own energy, our qi energy. My teacher trained with medical doctors and qigong masters out of China. And in that process, I really started to cultivate my own intuition. My stress levels were starting to become a little bit more regulated, a little bit more modulated, under my control. And once I started to work with practice clients, I noticed how I could pick up on psychically, intuitively what was going on for them. And we had them fill out a health history form. And sometimes when they wouldn't tell us certain information or tell me certain information they might have forgotten, I would pick up on the particular meridian that might have been correlated metaphorically or physically to that organ system, according to the Chinese 5-element theory. And so over time, I started to recognize, hey, there's something going on here. We're able to understand people, information beyond space and time, beyond what we consider our physical material world. And so that really opened me up to a whole other way of understanding, of knowing. When I was at the health center, I then was promoted to office manager. I became the administrator of the Qigong school. There was a chiropractor there. They provided nutritional counseling. They used herbs, supplements, other forms of holistic approaches, including massage and body work. And I actually also found that massage therapy was incredibly relaxing, which I think a lot of people know, but at the time, it was more considered kind of a luxury versus something that could really be beneficial for your physical and mental health and well-being. And so I went to massage therapy school. And when I was in massage therapy school, I learned about reflexology, which is like mini acupressure on the feet and hands and also on the ears. And so then I became a certified reflexologist as well and started my own practice. I did actually go back to work in some mainstream settings as an OT. I worked on call at a hospital here in Minneapolis, and I also worked at another skilled nursing, long-term care facility. And when I worked at the hospital, I learned about a friend of mine. It was the same hospital. She knew somebody there who was starting an integrative medicine program. And so I applied, and then I actually became one of the integrative medicine practitioners at this hospital where we worked inpatient and outpatient. I also worked alongside holistic nurse clinicians who are nurses who actually can be certified in holistic health. And what also is now known as integrative medicine or integrative health, but back then was kind of transitioning from the term alternative medicine or complementary and alternative medicine. And we now know there's a lot more research in these approaches, for example, with aromatherapy, energy healing, massage, meditation, yoga, various forms. And that really built my confidence with using these holistic and integrative health approaches because I was working in a fast-paced hospital, in and out of patient rooms, all over the hospital, pre and post-op, ICU, and then an outpatient center was built, and I also worked outpatient. So this was in 2003 to 2005, and so working alongside these holistic nurse clinicians, I thought to myself, well, why aren't there holistic OTs? And I'd really love to connect with some OTs. And then I returned back to private practice. And in 2011, I started blogging about holistic OT and using, what's formerly known as complementary and alternative medicine, now known as complementary integrative health. And from there, it grew. I started writing for Advanced magazine for OT practitioners. And now the community has really grown. It's the holistic OT community. And I also started teaching continuing education classes to help the profession recognize how beneficial these approaches can be for lowering stress, pain, and many ways. But that's sort of a little entry into how I got into all of this.
That's amazing. And when you talk about holistic OT and the integrative approach, what does that mean for our listeners?
Well, like I was saying, complementary and alternative medicine, the term, it's abbreviated as CAM. So if you were to look in literature, probably before 2002, 2003, somewhere around there, it's approaches that have previously been thought to be outside of mainstream healthcare that didn't have efficacy-based research behind them, like meditation, like yoga, Tai Chi, Ayurveda, energy healing, various forms. There's Qigong, there's Reiki, healing touch, therapeutic touch, aromatherapy using essential oils. So these are approaches that really are kind of also in the realm of like natural healthcare. And over time, more research has shown benefit for those. So, for example, meditation. I would say meditation and yoga around 2016 just saw a huge jump in research demonstrating that it can help with lowering stress, anxiety, symptoms of depression, insomnia, physical pain, emotional pain. There's so much more to it. It can help with attention, with focus, with problem solving, insight. There's even a form of meditation called insight meditation. And John Kabat-Zinn was somebody who started talking about mindfulness meditation, which really comes from a Buddhist meditation called Vipassana, which means clear seeing. And before that, you had Herbert Benson, a cardiologist out of Harvard, who coined the term the relaxation response, which is the opposite of the stress response. And so over time, these ways of being with ourselves that can just be for daily life or just regular, healthy, happy, routine in life, or for actually also helping if somebody has had some type of limitation in their life and they're wanting to recover from something. And that's the beauty of these integrative health approaches, is that they can be used in both ways. That if somebody is wanting to just have not just, but I mean, it's very powerful to have a healthy life. People think about eating well and exercise and so forth, but many of these other approaches, if you will, can also add a lot. And there's a variety of them. And that's why I think integrative health, people like to try to, wrap it up in a bow, but there's so many different approaches. And maybe it'll always be considered its own category, but I suspect over time there'll just be different forms of healthcare.
And what's the benefit of going to a holistic OT that is potentially trained in some of these integrative approaches compared to like a meditation teacher or a yoga teacher?
Well, I think it depends on what a person is looking for. So if a person is wanting to have a meditation practice, I think it's fine to go to, I mean, there are a lot of great meditation teachers out there. If somebody wants to learn yoga, find a very qualified yoga teacher, somebody who's been doing it for a while, and look at their lineage, who taught them. If a person is, maybe they've had an injury, or if they're recovering from some type of physical or mental imbalance or injury, I do think that going to somebody who is already trained in physical medicine and rehab, like an OT or a PT, that you're going to get more depth with your recovery, because OTs are trained to look at the person very holistically. And as you know, we're trained to assess activity analysis, meaning how is a person functioning physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually when they engage in a particular task? Where are their glitches? What is keeping them from being able to participate in a role, task, or activity to their best ability? So I think it really depends on the situation. I don't want to say that everybody should just go to a yoga practitioner who's an OT or a PT, because I don't believe that's true. But I do think that if you are in recovery, or if you want a particular lens that an OT might bring, then you're probably going to get a more enriching experience, and you are going to likely capitalize on an exponential recovery than you would perhaps otherwise.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with you there in terms of, I think each set, whether it's a yoga teacher, a meditation teacher, qigong, whatever it is, they're all as important. But if you are finding that there's something else that's going on for you, just having someone who's had some of the training with the science and the art side of things is probably going to be able to get into the depths with you. You mentioned earlier about meditation and intuition. What is intuition? How do we build that muscle? And what is meditation?
Yeah. Well, they're very much connected. So, intuition, a very simple definition, there are many different ways of looking at intuition, but a simple definition is that it's our inner knowing, our inner wisdom. And meditation is, there are many styles of meditation, but essentially, meditation is focused attention. It's where you're putting your attention. There are many ways that you can meditate, many different styles. The connection between the two is that, well, first of all, intuition is something that I believe we're all born with. And I like that you ask, how can we strengthen that part of ourselves? Because we think about logic. There are logic classes in college. We value an analytical mind. However, I believe our intuition is sorely, completely underutilized in our society and culture. I would say mostly around the world. However, there are indigenous cultures that are much closer to that than I think some of the more developed countries, because they're much closer to nature, they're much closer to spirituality, they're closer to their ancestors, they're closer to their lineage, and they're supported for ways of knowing, for psychic functioning, that in some pockets of the developed world, people are laughed at, criticized, scrutinized, and sometimes even told that they're mentally ill, which is really, really not just sad, it's pretty horrific. Some of those examples would be, extreme examples would be somebody who maybe is hearing voices. And in mainstream medicine, right off the bat, they're going to be labeled as schizophrenic. However, if you engage with that person, and if there's an open-minded psychiatrist and maybe mental health rehab team, there are actually proven ways in a lot of cases where people can move through and understand what may be communicating with them. It could be a benevolent force or voice. It could be a past loved one, where we sometimes might consider a person being psychotic or psychosis. But those are extreme examples. And that's a small percentage of the population. But I do mention it because most people actually have had experiences of some form of psychic or telepathic communication, precognition. Some people, I've interviewed a few psychiatrists. I'm also a co-host on a YouTube channel, a podcast called New Thinking Aloud, and I've had the pleasure of interviewing a couple psychiatrists who've really delved into this, and they've said that it's normal for people to have some forms of hallucinations at times. So it really makes you want to explore this a little bit more versus just kind of out of hand, dismissing it. From an everyday perspective, our inner knowing is always there. However, most people know they have intuition, but they don't know how to harness it. And before I get into that, I just also, because you kind of asked a two-parter question there, with intuition and meditation, one of the best ways to develop your intuition is through meditation. It's not the only way, because we can get insight through dreams. We can have repeated messages coming to us where we might hear something on the radio or a streaming service of music, or we might be hearing the same messages over and over from people we encounter. We could have synchronicities, which sometimes people refer to those as serendipities or meaningful coincidences. And this is where intuition for some people might also be synonymous with spirituality or with God or with a guide or angels, because some may refer to it as that quiet voice within us. I think the best way to know when your intuition has been active in your life is to think about a time that you just knew something was right, or you got a sign or a message that you were to make a decision a certain way, or to do something, or to not do something, or to be in a particular relationship or not be in a relationship, take a job, not take a job, go to the school, not go to the school, move, not move, whatever the decision was. Go back in time and pay attention to what was happening for you in those moments when you knew that this was the right decision to make. Then you can pay attention to what we know as OTs is called interoception. So these are all the ways that we experience our reality, our senses, what a lot of times is referred to as the five senses, but we have other ways of sensing as well. And some people might hear messages or get a voice that tells them something, or maybe it's their own voice within their head, or they might have a feeling. It's very common for people to have a gut feeling. Some people get goosebumps or a tingling up and down their spine, or like a electric shock. Like when I met my husband, I just felt this electric bolt go up and down through my body. And I didn't know why, but I just thought, wow, this person is really important to me and I'm supposed to be with this person. I need to be with this person. So when you have those 2020 experiences, then as you go forward, you can begin to pay more attention to when that part of you is more active. Through meditation, there are also many health benefits. So the benefit of cultivating some type of simple meditation practice is that you can keep your health, maintain your health. You can, in some cases, reverse illness and disease, as outlined by Dr. Herb Benson in his Relaxation Revolution book. And you can also access your intuition, because what happens when we go into meditation, and it can be as easy as daydreaming, looking out a window and watching the clouds go by. It can be sitting in nature, looking out at a beautiful vista or scene, or imagining that in your own mind. And it can also be as simple as just noticing your breath moving in and out of your body. You know, as OTs, we're taught about stress management. So this is very much in our realm. And diaphragmatic breathing, for those OTs who are listening, is a term we all know about. So basically, it's belly breathing, deep breathing, allowing the abdomen to expand with the in-breath and then come back toward the body with the out-breath. And we can just simply follow the breath as it moves through our nose and into our lungs and back out again, feeling the sensations. And when our mind wanders, just have an oh well attitude and bring your attention back to what you're focusing on. That can help to quiet the mind. And the misnomer is that people think, oh, I can't meditate, or I'm not a good meditator because I can't stop my thoughts. Or if I go into meditation, my thoughts are just all over the place and I get really uncomfortable, which is very normal, which is why there are many strategies for having a successful meditation practice. But a few simple ones could be making sure that you're not full or hungry, and also maybe doing some type of gentle stretching before you sit in meditation, or maybe going for a walk. This is why people do yoga before they sit in a meditation. And then as you sit in your meditation, the thoughts get slower. There's more space between the thoughts. Our physiology shifts from a more stress response to that relaxation response. Typically, some meditations, you just got to roll with it. Some days you're going to be able to drop into that more easily, and some days not. And you just need to be gentle with yourself. This is why I think mindfulness has gotten so popular, is because it's a way of being with yourself from a non-judgmental, unconditionally loving and unconditionally accepting place. Then as we do that, our stress levels come down. You know, if you think about when you're trying to make a decision in life, how well of a decision are you going to make if you're stressed or anxious or angry or on the run, like eating on the go, you know, rushing from one event to the next? Probably not the greatest, although sometimes we can have flashes of insight and we can kind of just know the right thing. That certainly can happen. But as we train ourselves to get into this more calm state, then and I'm kind of walking you through what the physiology can happen. Our blood pressure can come down, our breath rate can come down. And what is associated with that? That is the relaxation response, which has a lot of research on how our then immune system can be more resilient. And it even goes deeper than that. It goes into our DNA. So when we cultivate that relaxation response more regularly, we can also shift the genetic expression of our genes. So when we're more stressed, we are more likely to express in our genes the negative expressions of physical or mental health issues that we're predisposed for. So when we regularly cultivate getting into this more pleasant, relaxed state, you're countering that. Um, so yeah, I'm not sure if I answered all of what you just asked, but I just wanted to share some highlights of how meditation and intuition are connected.
Yeah, you did. Thank you so much. I'd love to explore with you a little bit deeper into the gut instinct.
Mhm.
And, for someone who's experienced a lot of anxiety or had a lot of fear based experiences,
Mhm.
how can they differentiate what's their intuition and, the path that they're being called to, or what's coming from that fear based response?
Right. Great question. And so it's true. Fear can serve as a protector, and sometimes fear can be, I don't want to say, I was going to say a maladaptive response, but I think it's our way of protecting us, as it can get really deeply ingrained. And that's why getting into these states of consciousness, of being, where we can interrupt those fear patterns, because a lot of people are in worry patterns. Some people can worry all day long. They're worrying about, is this going to work out okay? Is this going to happen? Is this not going to happen? And that's sort of a negative expectation. That's the nocebo, where we can have the placebo, which is a positive expectation. So, like I was sharing, there's meditation. Of course, there's other activities people can engage in to interrupt that pattern. They can engage, as OTs, we engage with help people with leisure activities. And this is also where there's, an overlap with OT with this, is that if a person is engaging in a meaningful activity that they enjoy, how likely are they going to be that they're worrying? If they're really immersed into it, and as some would say, in the zone, in that experience, they're going to be able to interrupt that fear. So I think that, again, using that hindsight analogy of thinking about, when did my fear really serve me and really served a purpose? How did I know that fear was accurate? And when did the fear inhibit me or really stop me? And it was just really my worry and negative expectation or fear of something bad happening. And I think that over time, as a person, if they really do spend time like I have, and many of the students I've taught over the years, if you really cultivate connecting with yourself, you can begin to differentiate which is accurate and which is not. I was taught by my teacher, and I teach my students how to connect with their intuition through various activities. One of the ways that I find is really helpful is by connecting with intuitive cards or soul cards, symbolic cards, the store-bought decks you might refer to as like tarot cards, which is really just a spiritual journey of a person. And they can be a really helpful way of reflecting back to you what is going on in your life. Some people say, oh, you just look at the cards and just see what you want to see. I've been doing this for a number of years. And if I did a research study, it is uncanny how accurate the cards can be, especially if a person has taken the time to do at least a minimum 5 to 15 minute meditation or prayer before working with the cards, so that you can get into that state of consciousness where because quantum physics has shown this, that we're all interconnected. Everything is entangled with everything. You and I seem like we're separate and different, but we are all connected. So we can know information. It's just getting into the state of consciousness where we can open to that. There have been research studies that show that when the brain is more offline through meditation, psychedelics, coma, that the brain actually opens up to more information. So what we're doing when we're cultivating this meditation state is we're getting into a state of being where we can open up to a greater part of ourselves and the all. And with these intuitive cards, a person meditates, comes up with words or images, takes like a blank recipe deck and has a sheet of paper and just writes down, or on a device, and just writes down, it could be 20 or 50 more different words. And then they take those words, put them on those cards, draw or paste an image that represents, or paint. I've had people be very creative over the years. An image that of that word or image that it represents. And then on the other side, you keep the card blank. And then when you have a deck of at least 20 cards, and in my book, my intuitive development book, I actually give instructions on how to do this with my teacher's blessing, who, thank you for sharing that with me, because it's helped me so many times in my life. And it's always been accurate, by the way, when you really can sink into this, that then you can start interacting with these cards and you can ask questions. Now, I'm not suggesting that you can look at this. I'm not just trying to help people, become fortune tellers in their lives, because I think there's more going on in life. I think we have free will. I do think there's some destiny at play, some karma for sure. But then you can be more on the flow with your life, have things work out more frequently, have more joy, more love, more peace. And with these cards, you can ask questions about what's the likely outcome, or what kind of experience am I likely to have, or the energy around if I went to this school, or if I went to this school, or if I chose to become a parent right now, or if I wait 2 more years or 5 more years or 10 more years, or whatever your questions are. I mean, it's over the years, I've helped people in so many ways in their lives with these. And what this does is that this helps when you engage in this process. You have created these images, that these symbols within yourself, and you have an outer representation, and then you're engaging with them, and it helps you connect back with yourself so that you can get that insight, and then you can trust your intuition. Now, when I go back to when I was learning energy healing and massage therapy, one of the reasons my intuition really grew is because I was also working with people who were feeding information back to me that I was psychically, intuitively picking up. I was hearing messages, I was seeing images and symbols, I was interpreting them with their permission, and they validated my experience. So the more that we trust our intuition, the more that it's going to be accurate and valid, the more it's going to flow to us, or us to it or with it. When we have fear and doubt about it, we're going to block it, and it's not going to be there.
When we have fear and doubt, it's going to block it. Amazing. I've
About
resonated.
intuition. I mean, the fear and doubt, fear sometimes can be an indication we need to pay attention, just like all the emotions serve a purpose, right? Like anger serves a purpose so that we can take action, obviously not in a harmful way to ourselves or others. Sadness, it's a loss. So we're honoring, there's something that's missing, and that there's something else that maybe maybe we can transform what we lost, or maybe something else will take its place. But yes, as far as just doubt about intuition, or doubt about your ability with it, or, oh, this isn't real, or that's not accurate, or that image in that dream doesn't mean anything, then you're not going to be able to get the message that it's sharing with you.
So it's trusting it and having the courage to trust it.
Yes, and playing with it and finding it a joyful experience and a fun experience versus something serious or something to be afraid of, in and of itself, because it's something we all have. I promise you, intuition is speaking to us all the time. And some people are able to grab it and harness it and listen to it, and a lot of people doubt it. And then they kind of had these starts and stops with it. And so I'm so grateful to talk with you, Shraddha, because I really wish that intuition was taught all the way up to, at an elementary level, but all the way up to the university level, like logic classes, because I truly believe that if more people listen to their intuition, and to be fair, there are many people who do, right? Like you and I became OTs. We're here today. It must be serving us because we're having this conversation. So there was definitely something right about that. Um, but sorry, I just got distracted for a minute there. Um, so yeah.
No worries. You were talking about intuition and how it would be good if we were taught intuition at a
Thank
higher
you.
level.
Yes, if we were taught at a higher level, I was just offering that it isn't that we have to take a university course to listen to our intuition. I was just offering that I wish it was more valued in our mainstream, kind of society, because it is something we all have. And I do believe that the more that people connect with it, the more authentic we can be to ourselves, the more that we can become the best versions of ourselves, the more joy and harmony we can be in our lives, and the more that we can enrich our lives with self-love, self-acceptance, which then in turn, we can then be kind and loving and accepting to others. Because when we have, I really found over the years working in healthcare and helping people with intuition and meditation and going deep into their consciousness, that a lot of people don't like themselves, or they don't like parts of themselves. Um, a lot of people, forget loving themselves. They have a hard time liking themselves or parts of themselves. And some of that is legit. Like, yeah, maybe you need to step up a little bit and be a little bit better in these areas. But a lot of it really comes from wounds from the past. Childhood wounds are usually where it stems from. Some type of neglect or abuse or something that happened where we didn't feel that we were good enough, lovable, had worth or value. So we can deny those parts of ourselves. And through this process of connecting with yourself, you can embrace all of you in a loving way. Even the parts that maybe you don't find acceptable, you can find ways to embrace that so that those parts can transform into a way you would like them to be.
Thank you so much, Emmy. I've had a lovely discussion with you today, and I feel like I could talk about this for hours. There's so much and just goodness in it. But I'd love to finish off with 3 questions that I ask all my guest speakers.
Hey.
The first one being, how would you like to see the future of holistic health and well-being?
Well, I would like to see that it is taught in all the universities. In occupational therapy, I would love to see a standard in OT education that holistic integrative health needed to be taught, because on a very basic level, many of these approaches, meditation, just one of them, guided meditation, guided imagery. Like when I was working at the hospital, I could help lower somebody's pain, stress, and anxiety levels in often just under 15 minutes by 50% of the time, by 50%, 80% of the time. And this was when they'd already been seen by the pain doctor. They were often on the max dose of pain medications. So yeah, I would love to see that there was an accreditation council for OT education here in the United States. And I would love to see that it was reimbursed. I would actually like to see a universal healthcare system. Some might refer to it as a Medicare for all. So, there's more I could say, but that's just a simple answer.
Second question being, what's your favorite occupation to engage in? And for our listeners, occupation being any activity.
Oh, my favorite. Oh, I have to pick just one?
Yeah.
I'm going to say cuddling with my dog and husband.
Aw. And the last one being, if someone's wanting to make a change, don't know where to start, what are 3 resources that you can recommend?
Any change in general or on our topic today?
Just any change. If they're really, either experiencing a chronic health condition or just a period in their life where they're feeling really stuck, what are 3 things that you can recommend them to maybe look at or start doing? that can enable that change?
Mm-hmm. Well, I would say that some of the topics we just touched on here today, that finding an activity that you enjoy doing, if you have difficulty engaging in that, to find an awesome occupational therapist who can assist you. I will mention that I have my own Emmy Vadnais YouTube channel, and I have a lot of free meditations on there. And I created that so that it is free to people. And I would say find some type of activity where you can feel calm, quiet, relaxed, peaceful. It might be a formal meditation practice. It could be one of my other favorite activities is gardening. It could be that, or it could be going for a walk. And then I would also say get support, talk to somebody, reach out to somebody, and let them know that you're going through a hard time and that you are looking for support. Because I think a lot of times people get isolated and they feel all alone, and that's not a fun place to be, because people do care about you and they want to help you.
Amazing. Thank you. Emmy, if our listeners want to find out a little bit more about you, where is the best way to find out?
Yeah, I would say for just me, go to emmyvadnais.com. That's my name. And then also for those OTs who are interested in holistic and integrative health approaches, to go to holisticot.org.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shadra.
Well, this is where your journey of exploration continues. Please subscribe to the Lifeability podcast so that you can stay tuned when new episodes come online. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram. The mission at Lifeability is to inspire you to create a more fulfilling life for yourself and improve your quality of life. So why not share this podcast with your loved ones and create a ripple effect together? Until next time, Asante Sana.